Once upon a time, there was an old, abandoned hospital. The hospital was located on the outskirts of the village, right on the edge of the forest. It was believed by the locals to be cursed. Many terrifying stories circulated about the hospital, and children were afraid to approach it. One night, 3 friends, Tim, Sarah, and Jake, who wanted to be brave, decided to go to this old hospital. They believed they could overcome their fears and explore the inside of the hospital. With the moon casting a dim light in the sky, they arrived in front of the hospital. They stopped in front of the hospital door. The door was rusty and creaked slightly as they pushed it open. As they stepped inside, an immediate shiver ran down their spines. The hospital corridors were dark and silent. They began to light their way with flashlights. With every step they took, strange noises seemed to come from the walls. The hospital rooms contained old patient beds and outdated medical equipment. When they entered one room, they heard a rustling. In the corner of the room, they saw a figure, an apparition-like being was, approaching them. The children panicked and began to run. They got lost in the hallways and tried to open doors, but the doors closed on them. When they were trapped in a locked room inside the hospital, the room's walls seemed wooden, and there was a table in the middle of it. They found a note on the table. The note read, "The hospital is cursed. If you try to escape, you will be imprisoned here forever." When they confronted this terrifying truth, tears filled the children's eyes. The old hospital was indeed a horrifying place, and they had to do their best to get out. After a while, they managed to open the doors and rushed out of the hospital. They returned to the darkness of the forest. Taking a deep breath when they had escaped from the hospital, they could no longer bear to look at the forest and decided they would never go near the hospital again. Following this incident, the villagers completely abandoned the old hospital, and no one dared to approach it anymore. Tim, Sarah, and Jake could never forget the frightening memories of that night, and they warned others to stay away from the cursed hospital. Once upon a time, in another place, the story of an old and abandoned mansion began. This mansion had been deserted and forgotten by its owners years ago. The townspeople considered the land cursed, and nobody dared to approach it. However, a group of brave friends decided to ignore the legends. As they approached the mansion, the sky rapidly darkened, and a violent storm began. The group, armed with their flashlights, opened the creaky old wooden door and entered inside. The wind's moans could be heard. The hallways were filled with tears of dust and the invasion of dead insects. The walls had peeling wallpaper and decaying furniture due to rainwater leaking from the roof. As they explored the first floor, they heard eerie sounds. Despite checking the doors and windows, they couldn't find the source of the sounds. The group decided to head upstairs, and they began to climb the deteriorating staircase. With each step, the stairs became more unstable and treacherous. Upon reaching the upper floor, the darkness was even more intense. Thin mist rose from the walls, and an old piano came into view suddenly. The piano started playing on its own, without anyone touching the keys. The group was terrified because nobody was playing the piano. When the music ceased, they realized something was terribly wrong. They hastily decided to leave the room, but the door had closed, and they couldn't open it. Panic set in as they struggled to force the door open, but it remained shut. In the midst of their desperation, a mysterious entity appeared in the corner of the room. Its eyes were red, and with a whispering voice, it said, "I was here when you were not, and now you shall never leave." The group members were in sheer terror, attempting to escape, but the room's walls started closing in on them. The door to the room suddenly opened, revealing that escape was impossible. The vengeful spirit of the mansion had trapped them forever. The townsfolk, witnessing that the group of friends never returned, deemed the mansion even more cursed. Since that day, no one dared to come near the old, abandoned mansion, and its terrifying secrets remained hidden for eternity. Sarah, one of the residents of the small town, was left alone as her husband Mike went on a business trip in their old farmhouse, where they had lived together for decades. The silence was usually comforting to Sarah. However, this time the silence felt different. One night, Sarah couldn't sleep in her bedroom. She could normally sleep soundly, but a strange noise from the room was bothering her initially. She disregarded the sound, thinking it might be the wind causing the windows to rattle, or perhaps the chickens were restless. However, the sound grew more distinct over time. Sarah could hear whispers and creaking floorboards, as if someone was moving around inside the house. Thinking that Mike was away on a business trip, she tried to find an explanation for the sound. Suddenly, the bedroom door creaked open slightly. Sarah grabbed her flashlight to see who was in the room, but there was no one to be seen. Believing that she was alone in the house, she assumed the door had been pushed open by the wind. Returning to her bed, she was still unable to sleep as the noise outside her room continued. It sounded like someone was moving around in the hallway. She finally realized that it couldn't just be the wind. Feeling increasingly uneasy, she called the police. When the police arrived, they found no one outside and no signs of forced entry inside the house. Sarah, frightened and anxious, told them about the strange noises and the mysterious figure she had seen outside her window. The police reassured her that her home was secure, and that perhaps it was all just her imagination. However, from that night on, Sarah could no longer sleep alone. Each night, she continued to hear the strange sounds, and the mysterious figure at the window persisted in watching her. No matter how much she tried to find logical explanations, she couldn't deny the unsettling reality of the situation. And when the townsfolk told her the history of her house, it served as a chilling reminder that the past's ghosts might still be lurking, and Sarah would have to confront them. A few years ago, John, a man who lived in an old house with his family, began to experience strange events. When they purchased the house, they were not provided with any information about its history. However, as they started experiencing peculiar things, they began to suspect that the house held secrets they were unaware of. First, during the late hours of the night, John and his family began to hear a strange sound emanating from the depths of the house. This sound was faintly moaning, akin to a whining wind, as if it were coming from within the walls. Initially, they simply covered their ears to ignore it, but over time the sound became more intense and clear. A few weeks later, Random other sounds started accompanying this mysterious noise, footsteps wandering between rooms, doors mysteriously opening and closing, and sometimes even eerie whispers could be heard. John and his family decided to trace the source of these mysterious occurrences. One night, John descended to the basement of the house. Following the sounds, the basement was eerily old and forgotten. Dusty shelves held old photographs, antique objects, and broken clocks. Just then, John tripped and was about to fall when he found himself in front of a window. In the darkness outside the window, a giant eye was staring at him. This eye was filled with a chilling, deathly gaze that sent shivers down John's spine. When he averted his eyes from the window, it suddenly fluttered, and the window glass cracked in front of him. After that moment, all the sounds abruptly ceased, and the house fell into silence. John and his family immediately left the mysterious house. After this incident, however, the gaze of that eye and the mysterious sounds in the house continued to haunt them, creeping into their dreams. The mysterious secrets within the depths of the house remain unsolved, and it seems they may never be unraveled. The haunting experience they can't forget continues to chase them in their remaining lives, and they still remember the cold gaze of that eye when they wake up in the middle of the night. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more horror tales and chilling experiences. Share your fears, experiences, or requests in the comments, and let us continue to send you into terror. In our next video, remember what might be lurking in the shadows of the night. Share your chilling moments and join our channel. Sweet nightmares.